So for two-step equations, they really aren't that much more difficult than the ones we've been doing with the one-step. However, two-step equations are just that. It takes 2 steps to solve them. So let's put on our little sheet here to solve a two-step equation. I'm going to use one of your vocabulary words that we have defined. Get rid of the constant first. So that's always what you want to get rid of first, the constant. And the constant is the number that's being added or subtracted with the variable, okay? And we'll look at those. So we want to add / subtract first, then multiply or divide. And this will make more sense when you see an example. Most of the ones that you're going to see today are pretty easy, and they look like this. Example, 2x plus 7 equals 15. I'm going to draw my line like I normally do to separate the sides to my equation. Now, if I'm looking at this problem, this number is called the coefficient, and this number that's added to, that's kind of by itself, that's with the variable on the same side, but it's being added or subtracted, this is called the constant. So that's the one that we want to get rid of first. So I'm going to, now you don't have to do this, but it helps. Notice the sign in front of the 7. It's a plus sign, but we've also discussed it as being a positive sign. So you kind of have to make sure that you're looking at that sign. So I'm going to put this whole piece in a little box here, because this is what I need to get rid of first. And I know it's a positive 7 because I'm checking that sign. It's a plus 7. And we learned to solve adding and subtracting. We match up a 0 pair. You could also think of the inverse operation. You do the opposite. So the opposite of plus 7 would be minus 7 or negative 7. If you do it on this side, do the same to the other. So now we've gotten rid of, we made a 0 pair with the 7s. So here's what I got left, the 2x. I'm going to drop it down. And the 15 take away 7 leaves me 8. Now this turns into a one-step equation, multiplying and dividing. Right now that is multiplied. So as we did yesterday, in order to break those two pieces apart, we had to do the opposite of multiply, which would be divide. So divide by, you always divide by the number that's with that variable. Okay, so I'm dividing by 2, therefore I have to do the same on the other side. And x would be whatever 8 divided by 2 is, which is a 4. And there, I'm finished. Let's try another example. They will get more difficult. This one will be another one like this. 4x minus 3 equals 25. Draw my line. Identify which one is the constant. The constant is over with your variable, but it's whatever's being added or subtracted. Notice here, I'm going to include the sign in front of that. What kind of 3 is that? It is a negative 3 or minus 3. So we want to match it up with a plus 3 to get rid of it, or positive 3 on both sides. Now that's gone. I'm going to drop down my 4x. I'm just going to kind of drop it down here. And over here, do the math. 25 plus 3 makes 28. Now my problem reads 4 times x equals 28. And you already know in your brain that that should be a 7, but let's show the work. Right now it's multiplying, so we want to divide to get the answer. So divide by both sides, on both sides by 4, and x will be a 7. Now let's look at one that has a division. These look a little bit uglier, but they're solved the same way. 10 equals a divided by 4 plus 3. Alright, so first thing I want to do, let's find our variable. It's on this side. So what's being added or subtracted, because that's called the constant. So I want to get rid of this piece first. And it's a positive 3 or plus 3. So to get rid of it, I would match it up with minus 3. Do that to both sides. And then it's gone. I'm going to drop this piece down. which just says a divided by 4. On this side, 10 take away 3 leaves me 7. Now, again, let's think about yesterday's. Take a, find your variable, see what's being done. It says divide by 4, so the opposite of dividing by 4 would be multiply by 4. That's how you get rid of it. If you multiply by 4 on this side, do the same thing over here. And I don't care what symbol you use. These are gone. So A would be 28. This one just looks a little different because of that fraction bar. Okay, let's try another. This one I'm going to put the constant as leading. So 6 minus 3x equals a 21. Okay, again, find your variable. See what's being added or subtracted. That's on the same side. But look at this 6. It is a positive 6. This negative sign actually goes with the negative 3. So realize that and bring it down with it in a minute, okay? So if I have a positive 6, in order to get rid of it, I have to say minus 6 or match it up with a negative 6. That's the only way I can get rid of it over here. So minus 6 on both sides. Now look, whenever I drop this piece down, I have to bring that minus sign or negative sign with it. So it's negative 3x. And then do 21 minus 6, which is 15. And now to separate the negative 3 and the x, right now it's multiplied, so the opposite would be divided. Now divide by the exact same number. It's got to be divided by that same negative 3 on both sides. So now my problem would be x would equal a 15 divided by a negative 3, which would be a negative 5. This one looked a little more difficult. Let me show you another one that may look a little ugly, and I'm going to turn the page. The ones that you're going to practice today actually look like these examples here. You might have one or two of this kind, so just be ready. This kind you won't see. I'll save that, and then this next one I want to show you. That way it's in your notes. I'm going to have to turn the page because you all know I write like a giant. Let me real quick just give you this example. That way it's in our notes. This one's going to look ugly. R minus 8 divided by a negative 7 equals a 2. Now this one is a little different than the ones that I have been explaining. The fraction bar is kind of like a separator. This piece is up here by itself and this piece is down here by itself. So I'm going to draw my line. First of all, find your variable. And normally I would say get rid of whatever's being added or subtracted. However, this piece is up here by itself. So the piece that's down here is the one you're going to have to get rid of in this instance. Okay? It says divide by a negative 7. So I need to get rid of this because that's the constant. Divide by the negative 7. The opposite of dividing by the negative 7 would be to multiply by a negative 7. Again, these are not the ones you're going to do today, but we have to go here, so I want you to see it. Mark those out. Here's what remains. The r minus 7 gets dropped down. I'm sorry, r minus 8. Hello. Okay, 2 times the negative 7 will be a negative 14. So now your problem looks like a one-step equation like what we worked yesterday and day before. It says minus 8, so you want to say add 8 to both sides. So r will be whatever negative 14 plus 8 is. The rule says subtract, take the sign of the larger number. So that's going to be 6. R equals a negative 6. And it has to be negative because your 14 is larger. Okay. One more that is a little more difficult, and you may see this today. Negative x plus 4 equals a negative 2. Now this one's just really a one-step. Well, it's actually 2 because of that negative, but I want you to see this. You had some of these probably from yesterday's stuff. First thing I want to get rid of is the plus 4, so say minus 4 on both sides. Be careful right here. It's going to be negative x equals a negative 2 minus 4. Okay, negative 2 minus 4. The rule says to add the opposite, so there's what it becomes. So it's going to be a negative 6. However, this right here, it doesn't have a number in front of it, but all variables have a number 1 as a coefficient, even though we don't write it, okay? So I need to get rid of the negative, and right now it's multiplied. The negative 1 is multiplied to the x. So in order to break that apart, I have to divide by that negative 1. This gets rid of my negative, so divide by negative 1. X will be a positive 6. Okay, so this is really your answer. You can always test that. So if x is a 6, it says the opposite of 6. That's why that negative is there. It's stating as the opposite. So if x is a 6, put your 6 in there, but then use your sign. Negative 6 plus 4 is a negative 2. So this one is a little ugly, as is this one. You won't see them today, but you will eventually see them, okay? So what you're going to be working on today looks like this. Okay, all of these are pretty cut and dry like the first few examples. Notice it says show all work. So that really means show all your work. A lot of students sometimes like to go in and find the constants first. So they'll go in and say, okay, I got to get rid of this first. I got to get rid of the number that's either added or subtracted from my variable. So a lot of kids like to go in and do this. That tells them what they're getting rid of first. That's fine if you want to do that. If you don't want to do that, that's fine too. But I do want you to show all your work. Okay, I'll go ahead and mark the first page for you in case you need that. And then the back page I will leave because there is a back to this, and I'll let you decide where the constants are. Some of these right here are leading with the constant. You've got an example. Now I'll stop, I promise. Okay, so 22 of them. Go ahead and do the best you can, showing your work. And then I'll probably have a couple of the harder ones ready for you to try. Okay?